very behind on everything right now. The main reason for that, though, is that I'm doing NaNoWriMo, so I am trying to kind of push through those words. I've tried to write a little bit every day. Some days are better than others. Yesterday was probably my worst day this November, where I had just a little bit over 500 words. However, I am hoping to manage to get loads and loads of words today. Today is Wednesday, 13th. I have plans for the rest of the week, more or less, so I am hoping to get in a lot of words today. I really need it. So I have coffee here. I use AirPress, so it's a hand brew, and light roasted beans. Very good. Oh, still quite hot. I like my coffee when it's a little bit cooler, so I don't burn my mouth. Anyway, so now I am going to do a wrap-up. It's on high tide, as we would say in Norwegian, på høytid. And I have my pile of books for October. And October was actually not a bad reading month. November will be by far worse. If I'm lucky, I might be able to read like 2 books in November, but hey, such is life. So I have my pile of books here, and so I'm just trying to rearrange them somehow. So I'm starting at the beginning, I guess. Can I have them here? Yeah. Good. A little bit of support as well. Anyway, so the first book I read in October was this. Aldri, 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 or Never, never, never. It's a Norwegian book. And this is a book about a young woman. She's 35 years old. She has been in a relationship for a fair while. She has been cohabiting with her boyfriend for 8 years. And when they met, she said, I don't want kids. I don't want ever to have kids. And he said, well, as long as I have you, that is okay. However, when their best friend is a couple, and they get pregnant, and there are also some other things happening, but I'm not going to reveal too much, and they get pregnant, and then her boyfriend kind of goes like, maybe I want kids after all. But she doesn't change her mind, and he leaves her because he wants kids. That is by far the whole book. To be honest, I think this has become one of my favorite books. I can relate to the main characters, not because I've been left because I'm not wanting to have kids, but for the fact that I actually don't want kids. And finding female characters in popular culture not wanting kids, it's quite hard. I have never wanted kids. I am 45 years old, still don't want kids. But it's a really interesting read because there's also this discussion about why should you have kids, or what prejudices do you meet if you're a woman and don't want kids. So it's a very good read, probably my favorite book of the month, and one of my favorite books ever it has become. So I originally borrowed this at the library, and then I just found out that no, I like this so much, so I have to buy it for myself. So I did that. So that was the first book. And then I read, this was nominated for the Booker Prize this year. It's Kichoti. Oh, I don't remember how it's pronounced. I picked this book up mainly, not so much because it was a Booker Prize nominee or shortlisted for the Booker Prize. Salman Rushdie is an author I've never really thought about picking up because I've thought he was really difficult to read for some reason. And this is a book with several layers and several stories and stories with us in stories, things like that. However, I did throughoutly enjoy it, and the reason for me picking it up was I was listening to an interview with him on, I think it was the Guardian Books podcast. Not quite sure. I can't quite remember, but it was a podcast. And it sounded like a fun read, and I thought, maybe I should pick it up and read it. And so I did. So I borrowed it at the library. It is a library book, and I read it, and it was quite entertaining. So, yeah, it's kind of loosely based on Kuchat, though it's not, because it's set in modern days and everything, and yeah. So it was a fun book, anyway. Sorry, I have a little bit of cold, and my nose is itching a bit, sorry about that. This is me. You might have noticed that I never really edit my videos. I wanted it to be kind of real, and this is me. No editing, no airbrushing, nothing like that. Just raw me and books. So the next book that I read in October was Ungen by Aina Basso. Basso is an author I have followed since her debut. When was it? 2000... I actually forgotten when it was. It's been a while now. And her first book was a young adult book called Ingen må vite. Nobody has to know, or nobody can know. Which is about incest, but it's set in the... Is it the 16th century? It's been a long time since I read it. But it's about that time and how the young girl who gets pretty much raped by her stepdad, and she gets the blame. So that's that book, not this book. This book, on the other hand, is not a young adult book. It's a book for grown-ups, and she is a historian, and you can see it in all her works because she has done throughoutly research, and this is no exception. So she once wrote an article about englemakersker, or the angel makers, I think you can call them, not quite sure, and it's a case in Norway at the change of the century, so around 1900s, roughly, about a case where some women who were poor and in a very bad situation, and they not exactly adopted, but they had some kids from people who couldn't take care of the kids to make money, and the money were more important than the kids, so a lot of the kids died, and not exactly of natural causes. So she's used that as an inspiration to write this book, and it is about the main character, who is a young woman. She's lost her kids. She had kids, but she wasn't married, and she and a friend finds out that they're going to not adopt, but take in these kids, these babies, and get money that way. So they but they don't really take care of them all that well. So it's a quite brutal book, but it's based in reality, so that in itself I thought was really interesting. So there was another really good read this month, or last month, in October. And this book I got from the publisher. I am fortunate enough to tend to get her books, which I'm very happy about, because they are so good, and I really enjoyed it. So if you can read Norwegian, I would highly recommend reading this, Ungen, which was published this autumn, and the other, Aldri, 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 which is also a fairly new book, also published in, I thought that was in August, and this was in, it came out in late September, early October, thereabouts. Really good read, highly recommended. And next book is actually a non-fiction book, but I thought it was super interesting, and it's another Norwegian book, and it's called Mørke. Stjerner, redsel og 5 netter på Finse. Darkness, stars, affair, and 5 nights at Finse. And it's a non-fiction book by Sigrid Sandberg. She is afraid of the dark, and she goes to Finse, where she has a cabin, and she is staying there for 5 nights, I think it is, from Monday to Friday, alone, in the dark. And she writes this book, which is about darkness and light. And it might sound a little bit dull, but it's not. She uses also historical stuff, like a woman who went up to Svalbard to stay with her husband, who was a hunter. So, hunter, gatherer, something like that. I'm not sure, fangstmann in Norwegian. So she goes up to Svalbard. This was in the 1930s, mid-1930s. And she stays there and spends the winter there, and how it's like to the darkness and how it affects them and stuff like that. It's also about how our planet is highly polluted by light, and it might sound strange if you're not familiar with this, but the fact is that a lot of the planet, people can't see the Milky Way. I mean, even Norway. Norway is proud to kind of take care. We are supposed to be like, we love nature, we love going into nature, and still, there's 2/3 of the Norwegian citizens, or the Norwegian, not citizens, inhabitants, people in Norway, they can't, 2/3 can't see the Milky Way from where they live. That is a high number. I was surprised. I would not have thought it was such a high number. So you can't see the stars because the planet is so polluted by light. And the thing is that not only is the planet polluted by light, like it affects humans, because it does. It affects us, it affects animals, and it affects plants. And I know she also writes about there are actually like states in the US that that has laws against light pollution, and I think that is a good thing to have. And you might think, oh, but it makes me feel safer, but I think it's more of the habit. I think the more time it takes of spending the night, spending time in darkness, the less afraid you are. And an interesting anecdote to this is I spent one night up in Fuglemyrshytta in the woods in Norway, in Oslo, very close to Oslo, but it's very dark there. The cabin has no lights. It's like the Norwegian tourist organization. It sounds very strange because it's not really tourist as in tourist. It's more if you like hiking and stuff like that. So they have cabins all over Norway where you can like spend the night. And there's no electricity. We had like the only lights that we could turn out on at night were either you light candles, or there were like solar cell panels that was giving lights, but there were like no other, so you couldn't charge your phone or anything. Which was fine, but when the view from that cabin is absolutely amazing. It's astonishing, but it was quite interesting after after a certain time when it gets dark, and because this was in the autumn, so it had started to get dark at night again, and you could like look over the city of Oslo, and you could see this almost like a dome of light. That was quite interesting. So this, a very, very interesting read, and also I think a very important read, so I also think that much more Norwegians should read it. It's called Mørke, or Darkness, by Sigrid Sandberg. So I finally got to finish a book that I've been reading for, well, not exactly ages, but I borrowed it at the library first. Oh, The Darkness, the Mørke was a book that I got from the publisher as well. This is another library book. So I borrowed it first at the library and I started reading it and I liked it, but I wasn't able to finish it in time, and there was a waiting list on this book. I think there's still a waiting list on this book. So I have to give it back soon. So this is why I have to go through with this video now, or make this video now, so I can hand it back to the library. And so it was good that I could pick it up again, and I finally got to finish it, and it's this book, Becoming by Michelle Obama. I think Michelle Obama is such a fascinating woman. I don't agree with her in everything, of course, and I don't think what she says is very controversial. I went to hear her at a sort of book talk thing when she was in Oslo. Horribly expensive. I would never have gone it if it wasn't gifted to me, but it was gifted to me by my dad. So we went to see Michelle Obama, Becoming, and it's interesting because she talks about a side of the US I'm not all that familiar with, which is being the first lady, but also about like growing up and the whole division of the country, sort of, in many ways. And it was very interesting, and I think she's very fascinating. Being a Norwegian woman, I don't think what she says is very controversial. It's like, for me, it's like, well, of course, why? And this should be like, this is how it's supposed to be, or something like that. It's very hard to explain. Also, what was the most surprising to me was how the whole election, the whole political campaigning for the election, how dirty it is. I was actually shocked, because Norwegian campaigning is not like that. They kind of dig up like dirt about their the other candidates to make themselves look better, which I find is, to put it mildly, childish. I was like, how can you trust politicians who act like that? Like, especially the current sitting American president, who's like, he dug up like so-called facts, and they were like fake facts, and kind of presented them and just to make others look bad so he could look better. And then there's also other things that he did that yeah, I don't know. I'm not planning on going to the US anytime soon. I've been there once, and to be honest, not sure if I'm ever tempted to go back. It was interesting to visit the US, but my favorite place to visit? I thought it was nice to see New York City, and Las Vegas was like really surreal and things like that, but yeah, there are other places I'd rather go than the US, and I could probably have a whole rant about how a lot of Americans seem to think that all people who are not from the US seems to want to go to the US and get a green card so they can stay in the land of the free, or the land of dreams, or whatever, and live the American dream, or something like that. But to be honest, as a Norwegian, why would I want to live in the US? I live in a very well-functioning country. I'm not saying it's faultless, by far. There are things that needs to be fixed, and who knows, will it be fixed? I don't know. That is another video, I think, but not from me. That is politics. I'm not talking politics here. But I'm not interested in living in the US at all. Quite happy here. Though I love visiting other countries and learning about other culture, and I love diversity and all that kind of stuff. But I've been to the US, and to be honest, it's not a place I'm eager to go back to, because there are so many other countries and so many other more interesting places. Anyway, that was a huge digression, and did I enjoy this read? Yes, I did. Very interesting. Maybe a bit slow at times. Not all of the things were things I found all that interesting, but it was still an insight in something I don't know that much about already. So those were the 5 books that I read in October. I am not sure if I will be able to do a November wrap-up. Not sure. We'll see. I'm not sure, to be honest. Might do like a November, December wrap-up, and hopefully I'll get to read much more in December. And now it's time for me to sit down and read. No, sit down and write and get those words in. I need at least 3,000 words today, I think, and hopefully more. Are you doing NaNoWriMo? Are you? If you're doing that, I would love to hear how your writing process is going. Are you on track with your word count? Are you getting some words in every day? How's it doing? I'm not asking you to tell me what you're writing about, because I keep my cards very close to my chest, as we say in Norwegian. I don't tell people about what I write because I'm not comfortable doing that. Just let it put it like that. Oh goodness, this is a long video. I digressed a lot, but there were like these books that kind of affects me. So I managed to read 5 books and 2 non-fiction books, which is very good. I have a 2019 goal of 3 non-fiction books, I think. So I think I've actually now reached my non-fiction goal. And yeah, I'm also thinking that I might have reached my Norwegian goal, actually. I think I have like reading 15 books, but I'm not quite sure, so I might have to read more Norwegian books in December. So that's it from me now, and I'm terribly sorry about the horrible lighting, but it's dark outside, so all I have is artificial lighting, and yeah, it's not good. Because it's like, what time is it? It's 9:30 in the morning. So yeah, so it's supposed to be light by now, but you know. Anyway, I'm rambling, and this is becoming a really long video, and I'm very sorry about that, and I hope that I will be back at some point with a shorter video, maybe about something else. Well, of course about books, but maybe not a wrap-up, because I've been doing lots of wrap-ups lately. So that's this for now, and I see you in my next video, and feel free to subscribe, like, comment if you have something nice to say. No hatred, please. We don't need hatred.